Good morning, gang. Happy Tuesday morning. So, as we begin the great thaw out for the good portion of the country, where we'll start melting some of this stuff or warming up a little bit, with the exception of New York, where I guess 27 people have now died from this storm. A lot of them being found in their cars, frozen to death, stuck on the side of the road because, I don't know, maybe they didn't have enough gas to keep the car warm. Well, they waited for somebody to come rescue them. I don't know, cost of gas, the war on heat. Just saying, all right, not making light of that, but, let's start trying to figure out what's going on. But here, now that Christmas is over, the last big expenditure of the year, depending on what anybody could do, is over. And so now we get into the new year here in a week. And what's that going to bring us? Well, it's your insurance premiums went up, your Medicare premiums went up. We'll see all the inflation adjusted costs go up. And of course, what's the one thing that we all get to look forward to is our next big expense? Taxes, whether they're income taxes or property taxes or whatever. Some of you guys may be getting income tax refunds, which only means you paid too much tax throughout the year. You gave the government an interest-free loan, and nobody gets a rebate or a refund on property taxes. That's just give the money up. So yeah, we get to look forward to that. At the same time that we worry about jobs, layoffs like crazy, companies closing, even Walmart's announcing they're closing down stores, biggest employer in the world, laying off people. So people are worried about how to pay the bills as the bills go up, and that money's got to come from somewhere. And we are all at a point where discretionary spending, let's use the government term, is pretty much gone, okay? Restaurants and waitresses and things like that are going, oh my God, I'm not making any money because people can't afford to go out to eat. What was it? Hollywood lost $500 billion last year because people can't afford to go to the movies. Not that the movies were worth paying for anyway, but beside the point. There is no discretionary income left. So now it starts coming out of the necessary budget. Gee, I'm going to turn the thermostat down some more so I can save some money on my fuel costs because electricity and gas is so expensive. And then the one that gets everybody, gee, we're going to start cutting back on our food. Now, this is where it comes into problem. We're a first world country here, guys. Just trying to remind you, at least we were up until this idiot got elected. We're quickly becoming a third world nation if we're not already there. But, when you can't feed your people, you are a country anymore. And I'm not talking about every country's got its homeless, its poverty, stuff like that. Okay, I'm talking about when your average middle class, anywhere from lower middle class to upper middle class people can't afford to buy food. That's a problem. All right. Well, now you're starting to hear more stories coming out of from the farmers about what to expect in 2023. I'm going to give you this. Food inflation. And again, these are the official numbers, okay? I just want you, we can all disagree, but I'm going to go on the official reported numbers. Food inflation in November was 10.6% over November of 2021. Now, just to give you an idea, food inflation in November of 2021 was 6.1% over November of 2020. Okay, so that means we've seen nearly 17% inflation in food in 2 years. Okay. The farmers are saying, expect 2023 to be worse than 2022. Okay. I mean, we peaked around 12% food inflation this year, or just short, maybe 11.5. Expect it to be worse? Well, let's go out on a limb and say 15%. Okay, that means the price of food in 3 years is going to have increased officially by a third. All right, so anything that used to cost you $3 now costs you $4. God knows we can talk about enough stuff that used to cost $1 that already costs $3. Okay, there's a big difference between government numbers and reality. We can tell that by the way they balance a budget. But I want you to think about this. This is what's going on. We hear about the Fed raising rates, and everybody thinks about it as, gee, my variable rate mortgage, if anybody even has one of those anymore, or my credit card rates. Some people may going, hey, great, you know what? I'm trying to buy bonds or buy CDs, and the rates are coming up. But think about one of the biggest borrowers out there, and that's farmers, okay? Farmers typically borrow money every winter to buy their seed, buy futures for fuel, things like this, anything, buy any new equipment they need, do their maintenance, whatever. Fertilizers, pots, however they grow things, okay? Whether they're a flower farmer, a vegetable farmer, fruit orchard, whatever it would be. Paying for the beekeepers to come in to pollinate, like I was telling you a week or so ago about the almond farms in California. All that costs money. Farmers typically borrow that money, and at the end of the year, harvest time, they pay it back with the proceeds they get from their crops. Yeah, well, if we go back a year or so ago, interest rates were hovering around 0% for farmers. Interest rates now for farmers hovering around 5.25%. Okay, so we start adding that cost onto farmers. I can't find the average farm loan. Okay, how much? There's some farms that are operating totally in the black. They don't borrow anything, and there's other farms that borrow to the hilt. Okay. But for an operating ag loan, and I'm not a farmer, so if I'm wrong with this, please correct me. But from what I can find, that people are allowed to borrow $400,000. Well, if you got to pay $400,000 at the end of the year, okay, you borrowed it, you pay it back. If interest rates are 5.25%, okay, now you're talking about borrowing $400,000 and paying $421,000 back. There's an extra $21,000 that's got to come from somewhere. Where does this come from? The food prices have to go up. Gee, we all enjoy that, right? Okay, but eventually it comes to the point where the people can't afford to buy the food. So the food rots, or they don't sell it. And now they're stuck with that loan and a bunch of rotting produce. So what does any good business do if they can't sell something? They stop producing it. So now what you're hearing farmers say is they are going to start cutting their production. All right? That means there's less food available, which of course means more inflation, supply and demand thing again. All right? There's less supply, the demand stays the same, the prices go up because people are competing for what little product is out there. But this doesn't only go for fruits and vegetables. Let's talk about meat, all right? And this gets interesting. We've talked about it a bit, what's going on with cattle prices because of the feed, which is grain, which is grown. The farmers can't afford to feed the cows because the price has gone up, because of fertilizer costs, because of water. Hey, you've got something like 58% of the lower 48 is in a drought. Okay, I know I look around here and the lake gets drained every winter. Not totally, but they drop it 20 feet or whatever it would be. but the ponds around and stuff like that are very low. Okay, there's a pond up the street here that we all call the cow koozie because all the cows are going in there and they'll sit around and stay cool in the summer. But it's very low. They look like mud puddles. There's a drought. So what have ranchers started doing? Well, we all know the story on this one. They are culling the herd. They're selling the cattle off, and this is why beef prices have stabilized. I want to give you this, just so you have an idea. The cattle herd declines, how much less we have this year than last year. Nationally, we are down 36%, more than 1/3 less cows in 2022 than we had in 2021. Texas, you're the big winner here, down 50%. They have half the cattle they did last year. Texas, okay. New Mexico, down 43%. Oregon, down 41%. Like I said before, if there's less cattle, that means there's less breeding stock. That means there's less beef going forward. Yes, I know we're going to hear all the comments and thoughts again, and I can't disagree with it, but this is planned that, hey, let's stop people from eating beef, yada, yada, yada. Bill Gates, I want to get you on your bug burgers, all this sort of crap, okay? This is where, as a prepper, it starts to become imperative. This time of year, it's time to really start thinking about it. This is time to get, just like the farmers do. The farmers aren't going, hey, cool, you know what, got a couple of months off. No, they're planning for 2023 spring, okay? They're getting their soils, they're getting their pots, they're getting their seeds, they're getting whatever they need, their fertilizers now. So they have it. It behooves all of us to do the same. You know, hopefully by now you have already made your planting map. You know what you're going to plant next year. Hopefully by now you have already purchased any fertilizers you need. Soil's a little difficult. It's hard to come by at this time of year for the consumer. It's not like the garden centers are stocking potting soil and peat moss, but we can get that stuff very soon. As soon as you see that on the shelves, get it, because you know what's going to happen this year is that more and more people who have never gardened before are going to say, hey, I got to put a couple of tomato plants in, or I got to put a couple of pepper plants in just to save myself a couple of bucks. And so you're going to have a whole lot of people come into the fold going, I got to learn somehow, which I agree with, okay? And they'll have a little bit of success. Some of them will fail, and just like all of us, we have a tendency to have a little more success because we've done it before. But they are going to be competing with you for resources as well, which is going to drive the prices up. Are they competing with you right now? Nah, most of the normies aren't thinking about it now. There's snow on the ground in a lot of places. Those of us who prepare are getting our things now, are figuring out what to do. If you want to get a side of beef this year, get on the list now, okay? The processing facilities, the butchers, you know, you don't walk in and go, hey, I need a side of beef. And they're like, great, come on back to the freezer and pick which one you want. They're like, okay, we can get you one in October. It's December, okay? There's a long lead time to getting it. You have no idea what the beef prices are going to be next year. It's not like you can lock in cattle future prices for yourself. You probably could if you bought cattle futures, but I don't think any of us are trying to do that, trying to offset the cost of a side of beef. Make your plans now. According to these farmers, food is going to get more scarce next year. And I know people say the grocery stores still look fine. Yeah, they do, until you kind of look a little deeper and see what they look fine in, okay? You know, there's a whole lot more shelf space for stuff nobody buys and a whole lot less for the common staples because there aren't as many of the common things purchased anymore. So they try to fill the stores, make the stores look full. But there's nobody out there who has an ounce of active brain cells that can tell me that the food prices haven't changed. It's going to be harder and harder and harder to afford food next year. You thought 2021 was bad, and then 2022 came. Thought 2022 was bad. Just wait. You ain't seen nothing yet. Pinball out.